What's up, everybody? It's your boy struggling to deal with the extremely weird feeling of finding a level of success I've dreamt about literally my entire life, and then realizing that having a platform means navigating the minefield of a wider range of comments and seeing things like people doing reaction videos to my videos showing up on YouTube in the same way that I've seen creators I like for years now, and this eerie sort of existential dissociative self-awareness that comes from seeing yourself in third person, in addition to the added pressure of not wanting to disappoint the people who've given me everything I've ever wanted. Also, Taylor Swift's getting married, aka Reed from Shameless Nerd. Today's video is about two events and the subsequent lessons I've learned from them that have changed my entire life. If you end up liking this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. You can also join these beautiful people on the screen right here and support the channel directly by becoming a member. You'll get exclusive access to members-only videos, as well as receive every video a few days early. You can also join the Shameless Nerd Discord at the link in the description and email me with any questions, comments, concerns, or retro-style 2D platformer recommendations at readfromshamelessnerd@gmail.com. All right, let's get into it. Despite the nature of my channel often being a lot of me saying, like, this is what I think, here's what I would do in this situation, or whatever, I generally don't really like the idea of getting or really giving advice, at least specifically. I believe in broad lessons, guiding principles, or ideas that inform every decision. I don't want advice for a specific situation, but I'm very interested in what people think about life in general, and using those broad ideas to sort of create my own advice, specializing it for me in my specific situations about myself. I believe very strongly in the idea that in order for anyone to truly internalize something, to fully believe in something, it has to be their idea. So I like when people present a guiding principle for all of life based on things that have happened, and then I can apply that to my life. And that's what I'm going to try to do in this video. Along the way in my life, in addition to the super harrowing and traumatic things that have happened to me, murdered mom, gang rise up, there are two kind of major sliding doors events that taught me and then cemented the single most important guiding principle of my life. One that I think is widely applicable and makes the biggest difference, like the biggest bang for your buck guiding principle of them all. So I have two stories. Story number one. I am a huge dork, and I am very good at very few things. One of them is remembering the colleges random NBA and NFL players attended, one of them is talking really fast, and one of them is taking tests and writing essays. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, right? Like, I'm like top 10 probably, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world. But because all throughout school, I just happened to be good at taking tests, and I just happened to be good at writing essays, and school happens to heavily weight those two specific skills. And test taking is a skill, by the way, something that you can work on independent of subject matter and get better at, but I digress as usual. Because I was good at those specific things, I had really good grades, despite dicking around a lot and not like doing my homework and stuff. And I did really, really well on the ACT. So well, in fact, that I got to go to college even though my family was, I've been buying my own clothes since 14 level poor, because I got to go for free. Room and board, meal plan, tuition, everything paid for. My dad made just enough money to disqualify me from grants, but not enough to pay for college and then keep alive my three siblings at the same time. Perfect storm, kind of lower middle class level. So I got to go. But in exchange, I had to keep my GPA above a 3.4, which is really high. A 3.4 means in a 5-class course load in a given semester, you can have 3 Bs and 2 As, or a combination equal to that. After my first semester in college, I had a 1.9, which is not 3 Bs and 2 As. It's actually much worse than 3 Bs and 2 As. So I got put on scholarship probation, and they said you have to get that up by next semester or your scholarship is gone. So I got my shit together, and the next semester I brought my GPA from that 1.9 all the way to a 1.7. And they emailed me at the end of my first year of college to let me know that my scholarship was terminated. And it was at this point that I realized, oh shit, this is bad, because I'm an idiot, and it took getting to that point to make me realize that. And I emailed back and I asked for an exception given my like economic inability to come to school otherwise, and a bunch of other sad sap story nonsense. And they respond, of course, and say, no, sorry, you were on probation, you violated probation, nothing we can do. I respond and beg, they don't respond. I start calling admissions and asking person to person, like, please, is there anything that can be done, please, I'm sad and scared. And the lady said, look, you can't enroll at this university in year 2 with your current GPA and retain your scholarship. At the onset of your second year at school, you would have had to have had a 3.4. So I cried, I told my dad I was screwed, and then I started thinking, wait a minute, start of my second year. It's May. So I called back and I said, hey, what if I don't enroll for next year right away and I take a bunch of classes over the summer at my local community college, and then when I enrolled for year 2, I had a 3.4 again? And she goes, I don't think so. Let me call you back. And of course she didn't call me back, so I called like 2 days later and I asked her again, and she goes, oh yeah, I spoke to the head of admissions the other day, and yeah, I mean, that would work, but you would have to take 18 hours over the summer and have a perfect 4.0 in order to get there, which would be 7 A's, or take like 21 and have a 3.8 or whatever. So I went home, I told my dad this, and he said, okay, great, but I'm not paying for your classes because like you're an idiot and why did you let this happen? So I went and enrolled in the community college in my town. I found out the price. They required the money up front, so my dad agreed like to front it, and I had to work 45 hours hours a week at a restaurant in town washing dishes and give my dad every paycheck, physically hand him a physical paycheck every 2 weeks. I got no money from the 45 hours work I did each week, while taking 18 hours over the summer semester and have all A's. And shit sucked, but I had no choice, so I just did it. Every second that summer, I was asleep, at work, or at school, and my last class of the summer, second term, was macroeconomics. I am not a math guy. I hate math. I don't really care about economics. See, I can't even say it right. It's just not my thing, but I tried my best. There were 8 people in the class. Most of them were like old people trying to like be more hireable or whatever. There was a dude in there with an eye patch, like for real, like an eye patch. Every day he wore an eye patch. And I went to class. I did every assignment. I turned everything in on time. And most of the time I was like one of 4 students who even showed up to class. It was a joke. I was the only one there sometimes. And at the end of that term, after taking my last final of the last mini term of my summer semester, I had an 88. And the teacher was this little tiny lady, crotchety, angry. She was a macroeconomics teacher. I think that's just like what they look like. And she gave me an 88. And so I emailed her telling her my situation. I have to have all A's or I can't go back to school. I've worked all summer to do this. I literally will not be going back to college if I can't do this. Is there anything that I can do? Retake a test, do an extra assignment. I'm not asking for a handout. I just tried my best and didn't make it. Can you please let me earn it somehow? And she responded to my email with 13 words. Read. No, it wouldn't be fair to the other students. Thanks, Mrs. Washington. And at this point, I was absolutely crushed. As broken as I have ever been in my entire life, I was enraged. And importantly, I had nothing to lose at that point. So I gave Mrs. Washington a piece of my mind and I emailed her back with a bunch of expletives. Fair to the other students, they don't give a about your stupid class and this. And also, I was here every day and I was the only one who cared about this dumb stupid class, and so on. And Miss Washington never responded to that email. I told my dad through tears and in between sobs how close I was, how I was so screwed, how it was over. And 8 days later, when final grades came out, my grade for macroeconomics was a 90. I emailed her thanking her profusely and apologizing, and she never responded. I never heard from her again. I can't find her on any directory to this day. I try every few months to see if I can figure out who this Mrs. Washington is, but I just can't. Story number 2. When I graduated college, I thought that I might want to go to law school and be a lawyer. I'm passionate. I like to argue passionately. I'm a passionate lover. And even though that third thing has nothing to do with being a lawyer, I thought I might be good at it. So to see if that might work out, I got a job as like an assistant to the head attorney at a local firm, one of those ambulance chasing big truck standing on top of type guys with all the commercials. And that shit sucked ass. And I hated it and him and paperwork and laws. And I was like, oh God, what do I do now? I've wasted 2 years. And my dad's best friend's girlfriend at the time was the assistant to the superintendent in a nearby county. And she asked me if I was interested in teaching. I was like, I'm interested in anything that isn't working in a restaurant. And she was like, great, you can teach on an emergency certificate without a degree in teaching. If you teach in the subject area of your degree, you pass some test and you teach at certain schools who are having trouble finding teachers. And then you can get your real certification later if you like it. So I was like, great. She helped me get 2 interviews, but neither worked out. So I just cold called a school in this county that I heard was a rough school and asked if they needed an English teacher. They said, yes, come interview. I did, and I got the job. This school was very rough. It had been a failing school for 47 years. My second year there, we got a D on our school's report card and we canceled classes for the day and had an all day long party in the gym. And I have hundreds of stories of some of the craziest shit you've ever heard. Some stuff that you would not believe is happening at any school. And maybe I'll do a video on some of those stories later, like how an 8th grade girl gave me this scar on my arm right here, or why students were required to keep their hands above their desks at all time in my classroom, for example. In fact, shit was so rough over there that I fell in love with the job and with teaching, and I had successes with some of my students, but overall, after 3 years at this school, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I wanted to transfer to the county in which I lived, the county which I went to school in growing up, a county that was much easier to teach at, frankly. Like, I did my best over there. I had a lot of success. I made like lifelong relationships, and there are students that I check up on still, and I see that they're doing great, and I cry, and you know, it's beautiful. But overall, it was just too much for me. And after 3 years, I wanted to transfer. Teachers transfer all the time. This is perfectly normal. The problem is I was on, at that point, what is called a provisional certificate to teach, which meant I was conditionally certified based on my passing a few like content tests and taking some state-sponsored classes, and eventually I would have earned my like Class A teaching certificate. After my second year there, I tried to leave the school and they told me I couldn't transfer on an emergency certificate and that I only had 2 years of eligibility on emergency anyway, so I should get a provisional certificate next year, which is transferable. Okay, I'm gonna talk very, very fast for this next part. If you wanna skip ahead to like the lesson and ignore the details, I get it. You can skip at the timestamps in the description, but here we go. In March of 2022, I was planning on staying at the rough school for another year, but I'm texted about a potential job at essentially like my dream school. I figure, well, whatever, go interview. They really like me. They offer me the job that day. I get all excited. I start the paperwork with the new county, and then in April, I get a call from the lady at the New County BOE. You can't transfer while on conditional cert. I say, oh God, no, is there nothing I can do? She says, you can call the state if you want, but no, I don't think so. And she gives me a number. That day, I call state. I ask if an exception can be made because teacher shortage. She says no. I say, well, can I forfeit my certificate and apply for a new one with the new county? And she says no. So I call the state again the next day just to talk to somebody else and see if maybe I can get a different answer. Same thing. So I call the new school principal and I say, hey, I'm sorry for wasting your time. I can't take the job because blah, 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 and explain the whole thing. He calls me back and he says, hey, that's bullshit. That's not true. Let me call the board. Send me an email explaining everything and I'll see what I can do. So I send an email to him. In the email, I come up with a different idea. What if I enroll in a master's program, forfeit my certificate, and then apply for what's called an alternative certificate in the state, which allows you to teach while you're in school for your master's degree with the new county? He calls me and tells me that the new county HR lady told him that, that last thing should work actually. Yeah, that'll work. So he tells me, yeah, that'll work. You just have to be unconditionally accepted to grad school. You can call her to verify, but that's what she told me. So I get excited again. I tell all my friends. I call the lady again the next day just to verify before I enroll in grad school. And she says, now that I talk it through with you, I don't think that'll work because you can't hold two certificates simultaneously. You can't terminate your certificate. It's valid till 2024 no matter what. I beg her, literally beg, to see if there's anything she can do. She says she'll call the state and find out. A week goes by. I hear nothing. I send a long email to the State Department asking them myself. The lady says she'll send it to her supervisor and get back to me. The new school principal calls me and asks if I've heard anything because they need to get shit moving. I say I haven't. I'll ask again tomorrow. So I emailed the HR lady at county saying if she's heard anything. She responds that she talked with state and she says that if it is determined that you are eligible, we will need to do another recommendation. I respond basically, well, that's what I'm trying to find out. Am I eligible? She says it's the state's call. I email the state again. They say, and I quote, please contact the blank county central office for assistance with this question. They will be the one to request the IEC so they can let you know if they are eligible. Those are the people that just told me I had to talk to the state office. So I forward this to the HR lady at the county and she says, I have heard back from the state. At this time, there have been no final decisions made on the alternative certification, so they are not able to advise us. Please check back with me at the beginning of July, and hopefully we will know what will be changing around that time. So I call the new school principal and I say, well, there's a possibility, but we won't know until July. And he says, well, we can't really wait that long, so let me call the state again. He calls me 2 days later and he says that, hey, the state says if the old county is willing to terminate your certificate and you enroll in a master's program, you will be eligible for an IEC and you can take the job. So I email a lady at the old county. I tell her the story and she says, yeah, I understand. I can have your contract terminated June 30th. So I tell the new school principal, he says that's fine. I apply for grad school. The old school principal at the rougher school asks if I'll be there next year. I say I'm waiting on one last thing, but it looks like I probably won't. And then in July, 2 weeks before school starts, grad school calls me and says I'm unconditionally accepted. I tell the new school principal, he says all good. The county says we're all good. And I start my new job 2 weeks before the school year starts. After going with the idea that I came up with in April, 3 months later in July, 2 weeks before the school year started, after fighting with them all summer long. I'm sorry I went through all of that detail, and I know that was annoying, and a lot of people probably skip through that, but I think the details are really important because it really highlights the lesson that I learned from these two major life-changing events in my life. The single most important lesson that I have learned in my life, the thing that advises every single decision I make about anything that is important to me, is as follows. They don't care. Be annoying. Your life is only important to you. Everyone else is watching a different movie. The lady in the admissions office at the school where I went to undergrad, she hears my story 400 times a day for a living. She's not calling me back. She's not working overtime to come up with workarounds and loopholes to help some random 18-year-old she'll never meet get away with his bad choices. The teacher at the community college isn't going to help me based on my sob story. She's a macroeconomics adjunct professor at a community college. The State Department of Education isn't going to answer my call most of the time. They're busy finding new and exciting ways to underpay teachers. People are busy. Everyone is the main character of their own story, and it is up to you to be relentless and annoying. People do heart surgeries for a living every day, day in and day out, and sometimes people die because of that. People are security guards in maximum security prisons from which people escape. Sometimes I put too much garlic in my marinara sauce even though I've made it a million times and I've mastered the recipe. Just kidding. There's no such thing as too much garlic. My point is that people grow numb to what they do with extreme repetition, and what is a life-changing sliding doors butterfly effect type of moment of emergency for you is a Tuesday to the lady in HR. She's about to meet her friends at O'Charlie's for lunch in 25 minutes and she's got to get out of the office. No doesn't mean no. Unless you're talking about sex and consent, which in that case, no absolutely means no, and get your dirty hands off me, you crustacean. No doesn't mean no. No means I don't care enough to really think about this right now. There are exceptions. There are loopholes. There are workarounds. They're just usually off limits to us because we're not billionaires or billion-dollar companies lobbying the government to further complicate the tax code for their benefit. The closest thing that we have to $1 billion is being super annoying. I was told, no, dozens of times about finishing undergrad, 3 separate times about getting my grade changed to save my GPA, dozens of times again about getting my dream job at my dream school where I still work, where I'm excited to clock in every day. My life would be so incredibly different if I didn't work extremely hard to be annoying. I am a mosquito, and it is my superpower. This is not a story of willpower, of not giving up, of strength, of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. This is a story of the awe-inspiring, earth-shattering, unparalleled power of creative, persistent whining. If you want something, get passionate, get inspired, and get annoying. Thank you for watching. See y'all next time. In today's post-video video, I'm going to talk about Owl City. I love Owl City. You can take one look at me and you can probably guess that I was a big fan of Owl City in the late aughts into the early 2010s. Many elder emos were. What is a lot less common is finding people who are adamant defenders of Owl City in 2025, which would be me. I could do a whole video on my extremely well-researched and thoroughly thought-through defense of Adam Young and the Owl City project as a whole, but today I just want to say a couple things and then I'm going to do like a tier list of the albums. Adam Young, as a songwriter, is an all-time great in terms of painting a silhouette of super specific and complex emotions and experiences with words, writing songs that create implied universes in which the song lives, and weaving profound one-liners into unexpected places. Some of the best Owl City lyrics are, similar to part of my case in defense of Fall Out Boy and the How to Get Rid of Your Smartphone post-video video, Shakespearean and truly like extractable, profoundly beautiful and tragic lyrics and stanzas. Owl City was not some like gimmicky, cutesy, and simple postal service knockoff. He just wasn't. I regarded the world as such a sad sight until I viewed it in black and white. Then I reviewed every frame and basic shape and sealed the exits with caution tape. Oh! When violet eyes get brighter and heavy wings grow lighter, I'll taste the sky and feel alive again. Oh, I could run through a brick wall! If you cut me, I suppose I would bleed the colors of the evening stars. You can go anywhere you wish, cause I'll be there wherever you are. Oh! Or my favorite of all time, maybe my favorite lyric anywhere of all time, reality is a lovely place, but I wouldn't want to live there. Oh my God! I could go on forever. Those are just off the top of my head. Owl City was, and still is, really singular sonically, aesthetically. The DIY sound complicated by the pristine polish and shimmer of his mixing style and his vocal tuning style, the floaty and dreamlike space that everything exists in, the arpeggiated and plucky little brain candy tickly synth filling out the lush and cloudy pads. Every song is its own little world where the rules of life are suspended, and there are things like Vanilla Twilight and Alligator Skies and Umbrella Beach. And as a DIY songwriter-producer, what Owl City represented as sort of this accidental pop star after the outsider music impossibility of Fireflies becoming one of the literal biggest songs of all time, despite being made on Logic Pro in his bedroom by himself, just like how I make music, is really inspiring and important to me. He wasn't like some hot, personable Hollister model. He was like this weird, like, attic nerd. And he wasn't chasing a pop sound until he was, like on some of Midsummer Station and Mobile Orchestra, or all of the absolute tragic, debacle, horrible garbage that was the Cinematic album, but we can talk about that separately. He was, for real, just like making songs about dentists and toupees and panda bears in his bedroom by himself, and that working out is so cool to me. And as someone who wants to do shit himself and is determined to like stay true to my taste and not just like what works, who loves DIY and bedroom pop, it's just really important to me. And things that are truly unique and singular, I think, always age well, and the peak Owl City stuff has actually aged really well, I think. And yeah, I'm a nerd. Anyway, tier list of Owl City albums. All right, what's up? So we're gonna do this a little bit quicker. I'm gonna try to do it quicker than I did when we did the Panic at the Disco one, and talk a little bit less about each album. I really might do a full Owl City video later. All right, anyway, so of June, the release 2007. One of the greatest little EPs of all time. I Don't Care, Designer Skyline, one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just, it's perfect. Same thing with Maybe I'm Dreaming. Rainbow Veins is still one of my favorite songs ever. Still, like, I made a top 50 favorite songs of all time list recently, and like spent like a year on it, and that was a song that made my top 50 favorite songs cut of all time. Technicolor Phase is another one that really sticks with me from that album. It's great. And then just to complete the run, the perfect run, the debut album, Fireflies, Vanilla Twilight, If My Heart Was a House, Umbrella Beach, Tip of the Iceberg, Bird and the Worm. It's just, I mean, it's the cutest, best, most self-contained universe-y, like synth pop happy little album ever. And it's beautiful. There are profound moments. There are like deeply emotional moments like Meteor Shower. It's just great. Cave In. It's just it is perfect. I don't care. I'm being genuine here. I'm being unironic. I don't care how cringe this is. I think that is one of the best albums of all time. I don't care. Then that was followed up with All Things Bright and Beautiful. I couldn't remember the name of it. And I would say All Things Bright and Beautiful is like an A. The Sean Christopher rap feature on Alligator Sky was a little bit like cringy, although I did become a Sean Chris fan for a long time after that because of that. There was a version of that song with B.O.B. that for some reason never got released, and they chose to go with the Sean Christopher one, even though the B.O.B. verse was better, and it's B.O.B. who was way bigger at the time than Sean Chris. But very great songs in there. The Real World, Hospital Flowers, Galaxies. I mean, it's great. It's great. Plant Life is a beautiful song in there. And then that was followed up, and this is kind of where things kind of took a turn for a little while. And so that was followed up by the Midsummer Station, which I'm going to put in B tier, okay? Good Time, Carly Rae Jepsen, all-time great, like, stupid pop song. It's a perfect pop song. I mean, give me a break. A lot of the production on this was meant to be very big and very poppy and very, like, zeitgeisty, and it feels very much like a product of its time. But I still think there are some really cool beats on this album, like, Dementia with Mark Hoppus from Blink-182 is really cool. Embers is a very cool song. There are like some cool songs that are on this. Oh, Deer in the Headlights on All Things Bright and Beautiful is a great song too. There are good songs on here. It's very well executed for what it was trying to do, but it suffers from being a product of its time. All right, moving on. The Ultraviolet EP, which may have come out before Midsummer Station, whatever. It's mid. I don't really care about it. There's nothing on it that stuck out for me. There's nothing that like stuck with me after this time, despite the fact that I was really still sympathetic to Owl City at this time. I was really trying to... It wasn't like I aged out. Like I still was very much attuned to like what he was doing, every like move that he made, like the Lullabies single that he did, or when he did the cover of the Taylor Swift song Enchanted, which is written about him, by the way. That Taylor Swift like met Adam Young and was like enchanted by him, and they were like had this very brief little fling thing, and you know I'm just saying nothing there for me. Mobile Orchestra sucks. It's not as bad as something that I'm about to get to. I also see there's a duplicate on here. That's just the Midsummer Station Deluxe version. I don't know why that's on here. Mobile Orchestra, the graduation song, the song with Aloe Black. It's so derivative. It's so like he was trying to like maintain this like momentum, and he kind of did, just like, to his credit, I guess, but like extended his kind of like peak in terms of like numbers, not in terms of quality of music, because this album sucks ass. But there was stuff on there that was interesting about the idea of the album and what was happening, but that album sucks. It's horrible. However, it is not close to as bad as Cinematic. I was so excited for this album. I was deeply excited for this album because leading up to this album, he'd gone away for quite a while. And leading up to this album, it was like this big reboot. The lead up art was very cool. It was very beautiful, like cinematic footage of like nature and like Montana and like these very like very beautiful landscapes and stuff. And it was like, the idea was that it is the soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist, this movie of his life. And I really liked that idea. I really liked that he was trying to get back to like kind of songwritery roots on it. And then it's just horrible. It's like almost unlistenable. The song Fiji Water is okay. That's the opening track. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. Like, he's back. It sounds very like early Owl City-y. And then like the single from that album is one of the worst songs of all time. Go listen to All My Friends by Owl City. It's like, it is, I don't understand how it's worse than like the Katy Perry fall off. It's worse than like, like when these artists go on to do these horrible things later on that just like don't make any sense in the context of like what used to be this very, like Eminem used to be very talented and still is of course very talented, but like just has lost like that magic kind of touch. It's the worst example of that I've ever heard. All My Friends is one of the worst songs. It's up there with like Boys Round Here by Blake Shelton. Horrible. And there's not much better on the album. There's a song called Montana that's okay, but it's just very corny. It's very like indulgent. It's very like lush for the sake of being lush and meandering, and like the songwriting I don't think is very strong. And then in 2023, this album Coco Moon came out, and it was self-released. It was like an independent release to a degree. I think there's like some label backing, but I don't remember the details of like their contract or whatever. And I was really impressed by this album. I'm gonna put it in B tier. It's a little corny. I'm not sure who the target demographic is, because there are songs like Dinosaur Park, which are that feel very like soundtrack to a kid's movie or something, like a Pixar thing. Like Learn How to Surf is like this very kind of goofy, kind of almost cringy, like very earnest, like kind of like preachy thing. Despite that, the music is very intricate. It's as like compositionally complicated as anything that he's ever put together. There's like time signature changes, and there's like fully orchestral like sections out of nowhere, and these like sections of the song that just like completely detour and then end up back where they're going, and like key changes and all this weird like compositional stuff that's really impressive and cool because he's still like producing it all himself. I don't know, it's just lacking, and it's not, he's not writing songs in the same way. He's like aged out of the like Sky Sailing, which I didn't even talk about on this one. The side project is one of my favorite albums of all time, Sky Sailing. He's kind of aged out of that style of songwriting, and I don't know if he can't do it anymore or if he doesn't want to do it, but that kind of like painting with words thing that he used to do, these like silhouettes, isn't as present on this album, even though you have songs like Dinosaur Park, which are very like insular and like universi, you know, or The Tornado is probably my favorite song in the album, which is the song about like the story of like being a newspaper boy and there's a tornado and he almost dies, and it's like, oh, I learned this lesson from this thing. But it feels very, the whole album feels very like the moral of the story is blank, you know, every song has like, this is this thing that this song is meant to teach you, and that feels a little like didactic and like not super appealing to me, but I can't help but really like it. And like my son is 4 and he really likes it because there's a song about dinosaurs and there's a song about learning how to surf, and there's, you know, it's like, and there is a deeper message in all those songs, which like only an older audience would recognize. So I think that's what he's trying to do, is like bridge the gap, maybe. I don't mind it. I like it. It's the best that he's done in a long time. And I think it is slightly better than the end of like the peak Owl City, the Midsummer Station album. So I'm gonna put it in B. If I did Sky Sailing and Airplane Carry Me to Bed, that would be S tier. That would be the best. I listened to that album before I went to bed every single night for like 6 years of my life. All right. I love you guys. I've gone long enough. I love you. Bye. Goodbye. Have a good day.